Let me just share my screen, and I'm just going to walk you through for today's session. So hello, I'm Michael. I'm one of the co-founders CMO of DueDash. And before we come to our guest and our host, I just want to give a very quick introduction to what DueDash is, why are we here today, and then, of course, we're going to talk all about today's session. Now, DueDash was created to really help founders, investors with a big problem that we face today. The fact that most investments sadly fail. And the simple reason for that is often because investors lack the right data to make proper investment decisions, and founders are also not able to build trust with investors, often as we're not able to understand how do I build the trust, what are the processes that are missing. And if you're not raising funding or not enough funding, this often can be the end of your company, or you hit a glass ceiling. Now for that, we created DueDash to really help you go through that whole process. Make sure you're prepared for your data, follow up with investors, create that data-driven communication, and over time are able to become investable and actually raise funding. But even beyond this, continue for your next round. In the same way, investors are able to find the right startups, interact with them, do the right investment decisions, and from where on can actually build a portfolio and support the existing portfolio so that we can get results that they wish for. If you're not on DueDash yet, please sign up. So you can do it on DueDash.com. Just go through that and then start your journey today with us. We are also supported by a lot of amazing partners, might it be with deal providers such as discounts, credits, also startup organizations, accelerators, incubators. And we are quite happy to have them on board. And if you need further support, we are also happy to forward you further. And you can also check DueDash for some of the offerings that we provide to you. Now, before we get started, this is a quick survey. I will share the link in the chat in a second as well. But if you have your smartphone at hand, you can just scan it. This helps us to better understand who you are, where you're coming from, how we can further support you. Might you be a founder, an investor, or startup expert, media. So just fill this out. And again, I will share the link in the chat in a second. And with that, I'm going to thank, of course, if you have questions, I'll be here. So you can write to me in the chat. So I will be, of course, throughout the whole session, or just write me an email. And with that, I would give it, of course, to our host. Let me just put our guest and our host on the spot. And then I'm going to disappear here. And yeah, give it to you.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you for that quick intro. Those of you who don't know me, I see a lot of familiar faces. I am founder and CEO of DueDash, which basically helps startups to become investable and help investors to save time and money. Basically, it's a data sharing platform where startups can share standardized information, and we cover the entire process right from screening through due diligence and portfolio management for investors. My background is I've been a serial entrepreneur. I've built multi-million-dollar companies, invested privately in many companies for more than 15 years. Prior to that, I used to work in corporate with Ericsson, HP, and German Telecom, and I have experience in M&A and basically the whole shebang. And I'm thrilled here today to introduce Alois Enda, CTO and co-founder of Ignite Program Europe by Intel Ignite. He has over 2 decades of experience in high-tech industry and has worked with not only Intel, but many other major players in semiconductor industry like Texas Instruments, Siemens, and many more. And in his leadership, the startup growth program Intel Ignite in Europe especially is driving innovation and ecosystem engagement. And this is his one of the key focus areas now. Thank you so much for joining us today. Tell us a little bit about your detours and moments that led you to enhance the vision of Intel to start this corporate accelerator, and why startup innovation personally is important to you. Especially you worked for so long in this kind of an engineering background, deep tech. It would be really exciting for us to learn about your journey here, Alois. Please enlighten us.
Yeah, sure, Parul. Hey, first of all, thanks for having me, and thanks for joining this session. I try to share my insights as good as I can. It sounds interesting when you go over my CV. It sounds very long, and actually it is long, more than 20 years in this deep tech industry. So always complex technologies around semiconductors. And to answer your question, actually since I graduated, I have always worked in roles that were very close to the outside. So not internally oriented, also engineering. It was very outside oriented in the sense of working with partner companies, working with suppliers, of course, working with customers. And in this engagement, I learned two important things for life, for business life. First, if you want to be successful, you need to know your ecosystem. You need to know the players. You need to know everyone who is in this area, from the whole value chain, including your competitors. You need to know the ecosystem. And the second thing I learned is that the technologies, and the ones I was in and am in, are extremely complex. And these technologies, these deep tech technologies, cannot be brought to a big success on an individual level. Individual means no startup can do it, no corporate can do it. So it's really all of them, the whole ecosystem, working together in a way to bring this forward. And I think this personal learning I have also applies to the industry. And many companies learn, okay, we need to work with startups. Startups understand we need to work with corporates. And this is why I got really excited when Intel decided to build up the Ignite program, which is a startup growth program. And I was offered the role as a CTO to co-found that, to shape it, to set it up in Munich. That's Munich behind me, by the way. That's our official picture. It's not Ignite. To build it up in Munich for the entire European area. And this is what I took as a challenge, and knowing how important it is to work with the ecosystem, it was a chance for me to really work directly into that and work with early stage startups.
Amazing. I mean, this is really exciting, basically, for a company like Intel having an accelerator program for startup companies and having that opportunity to partner with them. CVC typically do not adhere to a typical VC 10-year cycle. So it has a lot of positives for startups as well, who are not looking for an early exit. Can you give us some insights into how Intel Ignite is different from other accelerator programs on one side? And also, what is an impact in a long-term perspective that this program wants to create?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, our mission is we want to accelerate groundbreaking startups. So it really starts with how we select the startups. It's a very selective one. So we scan every 6 months, we scan about 300 startups, and we just select 10. 10 that we have that we see as most promising to invest our energy, our time on, and the 10 companies that we also think we can really help further. And I know there's a lot of, I mean, first of all, I have not that lot of experience in corporate accelerators, but I've seen some in my previous companies, and they were bad. So they were not good. They were selfish, and they were oriented to the companies. What I have seen, and what the good thing is with Ignite, we have the mandate to really set the program up for the sake of the startups in the first place. And this is, I think, one of the differentiators, that it's not in the first place for the corporate, but it's for the startup. And I think also what makes it different is the knowledge that the startups can access to. This deep tech knowledge, and when it comes down to really very deep, to electronics, to chip technology, to chip manufacturing, it's super deep, yeah. And these experts are not easily accessible for startups. And this is what we can open. So we can open a lot of expertise. We bring in the best of the mentors, couple them with the startups, and they have access to this network of experts. And the other network is, of course, by having a global player. It's not just the brand that gives credibility, it's also the market presence, the contacts we have, the sales teams we have all over the globe. This gives a lot of market access, market understanding, and interesting enough, it's all for free. So we don't charge them, we don't push for equity, we don't have any contractual obligations for the startups afterwards, so it's really all coming for free. So I think that's the differentiators we have.
That's amazing, actually, coming from Intel. So at DueDash, we use a 5T model for assessing a startup, which is team, timing, traction, technology, TAM, which is the market opportunity. And I think for Intel, there must be certain critical traits that you seek for, and certain evidences that you look for in the company, their business idea, and also the skills that the founding team has. I'm obviously asking for your secrets to some extent here, but perhaps you can share a little bit more about your framework for a startup selection that would help our audience today.
Actually, it's not so much different from what how you think or how you described it and your 5T compared to what I see how investors do their selection. It's not so much different how we select. Yeah, I mean, for us, if we would have to abbreviate that, then it's TTIP, Team Technology Impact and Business Potential. So this is what we're looking into. And so in the first place, it's always the founders. Are they capable of bringing the innovation forward? Are they coachable? This is a very, very big criteria for us, because the program is for the sake of basically helping the founders, and this needs open founders and coachable founders. So that's super important, and a team that we feel comfortable working with. And then, of course, and probably it's a bit different how investors see it, we really look very deep in the technology. And the good thing is we can look very deep because we have the experts. I have the privilege to have like 100,000 experts behind me that I can potentially ask for their opinion and for their experience. And this gives me a very good assessment. And this is also what we can bring to the startups then afterwards. Yeah. And of course, what we want to do, as we are less selective, as I described, we want to find real innovations that can have a broad impact. So if it's space technologies, if it's something disruptive, it can be on all layers. It can be on chip level, on electronics level, on component level, on software level, on application level. But it needs to be something that is very, very impactful and it can really scale broadly, and also in terms of business. So we're not just running after fancy ideas. We also want companies that have a technology and an innovation that can really be a big business success. And that's how we selected.
Awesome. So funding is a significant enabler of growth, and deep tech companies need even more capital than every company has their own reasons for capital, but deep tech companies definitely are capital intensive investments. How does your program assist startups in seeking or securing the necessary investments, and especially their funding rounds, continue to happen? So how do you support in their expansion plans? Can you give us some insights into that?
I can tell you, meanwhile, I can, because 2.5 years back, coming out of a corporate environment, I totally underestimated the importance of funding and also the complexity and what it means to really for startups to get funded. But meanwhile, I can at least have a good experience, I think, on that angle, and it's really one of the key pillars of our program. And it starts with, in the first place, that we have an experienced serial founder in our team. And the serial founder is also having an MD role within the company, within Intel, so that he has really the access and the empowerment to bring his experience further to the startups. And of course, he went through all the investment rounds and has a lot of VC contacts. And this is a very good experience for our startups. Then what we do, we build up a network of VCs. We have dedicated VCs that we think fit best to what we do, fit best to the startups, to deep tech startups. Some are more software oriented, some hardware oriented, so geographical differences. So we build up a network and try to find the best VCs for our startups. And we involve VCs really very, very closely from the selection day. When we have our startups pitching to us, and also finally to an assessor audience, we have VCs in. And that works very, very well. We get different insights, and they are in from the selection day all the way up to the closing pitch. And what's also very important, meanwhile, we have a lot of VC contacts, and we have a lot of friendly VCs. And these friendly VCs are also embedded in the program. So we bring them together with the startups. The VCs give some insights on how they think, what's important for them, to build up a mutual understanding, and also then for the startups to learn how they can best take advantage of that. And it's not just money, right? It's also important. A VC investment is not just money. It also comes with expertise, with a network on their side. And this is also what we're trying to build up. We want to do the best for our startups, and the right VC is not just bringing money, bringing added value.
Okay, this sounds very interesting, and it goes in the philosophy that we also kind of propagate through DueDash to tell founders to build relationships, cultivate lasting relationships with the investors. They may not come in this round, but they might come on the subsequent round, and also a lot of them come on with the follow-on funding opportunity. And that's where DueDash has an investor relations platform, which we call as an all-in-one DIY tool for streamline investor engagement and help people, whether it's startups or investors, save their time with data rooms, with updates, and visualized information and one-on-one access control. So people can engage through direct messaging, through reporting. Investors can track progress. There are pipeline boards, there are contact management, and there are like multitude of functionality, and I can go on about it, what we built here. It's in a sense ecosystem from deal flow to portfolio management. So those of you who are investors here and haven't checked it out, please go ahead and set up your free profile as an investor. And as startups, you go ahead and supercharge your engagement with investors. So we established that investor relationships are crucial. And we've realized that you provide a lot of value from the inside intel network and also the partnerships that you have for startups to benefit. What kind of metrics or benchmarks do you use to gauge the success of the startups that you invest in, and also during the course of the program and after the program?
Yeah, that's a difficult one. Because we're often asked about, okay, what are your KPIs internally, externally, and it's not so easy to measure because there's a lot of value that we think we can create that is not directly ROI or measurable. But there's one, and it's really our North Star KPI, and it's startup oriented. So what is the investment round that the startups get in the 18 months after the program? And typically the startups are pre-seed or seed. This is where the program helps most basically on the growth and the preparation for Series A. And most of our companies raise a Series A. Actually, we had 2 in the last batch that raised Series A during the program, which was not planned, but investors tried to pull that in. But typically in the 18 months after they finish the program, they have the next investment round. And a successful round in the amount is one of the KPIs that we measure for us.
Interesting. So I would like to kind of ask you a very different question. What is Intel's view on the current global challenge of climate change, and how does your accelerator program support that mission?
Oh yeah, okay, that's okay. I could give a very long answer. I tried to be some kind of short. I mean, first of all, as a company, of course, as a big company, a big visible company, there's a lot of expectation and activities on environmental responsibility, and this is in many aspects. So it's about energy saving. For instance, there's a clear target we have in the company that by 2040, I think, it needs to be, we want to achieve a zero emission situation all over the value chain. We invest in renewable energy, and if I recall correctly, then by last year we achieved 93% already, and in the next 5 years it should go up to 100%. So there's a lot of energy saving that we actively do in our fabs, in our offices, and with that. On top of that, of course, one of the key topics that we're looking for is sustainability. And it's not just for us, it's also there's investors that really request CO2 emission reduction from their startups in their portfolio. And it's also something we support. And actually, we have also the possibility to have some wildcard companies. So if there would be a startup that is not meeting all the criteria on the business success, but would be.
Sorry, please turn yourself off if you are not. Okay, we've already gone this. Yeah, please continue.
Okay, and if there's a company that really meets this sustainability aspect, or also other areas like healthcare, so basically doing good things, we have also the possibility to take them in the program, even knowing that they are not probably meeting the innovation or the business perspective topic that easily. So we can also do good things with the program.
Okay, sounds very, very interesting. So jargons in tech, especially around innovation, can be very confusing. I'm going to now nudge you by asking you a quick rapid fire questions, which you can answer in short sentences. Typically 1 or 2 or maybe 3 sentences, so that it gets easier. And then we can, after that round, we can go on to the audience questions. Let me know if you're ready.
Okay. Yeah, I try.
Okay. So a great 1-minute introduction that should contain certain elements when talking to an investor like yourself. Give us an example of that.
Okay. So okay, 1 minute is not long, right? And I think the 3 topics that need to come across is a unique person, a likable team around it. That's super important. And that's just coming by the personality contact. No need to describe. This is how simple the chemistry. Then what's super important is what makes it different. Yeah. So often we hear things that we hear multiple times that's immediately kind of put into a certain bin. And actually, as an investor, and also for me, I would like to hear what's in for us, what's special. Yeah. What can I take advantage of? Yeah, for me, for the program, for the ecosystem, for the whole industry, for investors getting money back. So, and this needs to come across.
Very valuable. I think this is a very, very valuable insight you provided today. Thank you so much for that. So, according to you, which vertical has the most potential currently and why?
That's super hard to answer for me, because in my experience and what I do, I have a very horizontal thinking. Because in the end, what I do, what Intel does, is there's computation everywhere, there's AI everywhere. So we serve all the verticals. If I would have, and this is really my personal opinion, the verticals that I think have the most need, and with this also the most potential, is more the very basic ones, which is healthcare, elderly care. There's a lot that technology can still help. And I also think, but that's not just one that I have, I would have 2. The other one is really solid manufacturing. Whenever there's really something built, something from chips to the electronics on top, up to cars, something solid. All the rest that is software based and all that will see a lot of advancements coming by technology. But I think the basic needs, this is what needs to be supported best and has the best potential also.
Which geographies do you think will lead the way for new ideas in near future as well as in the long term?
Okay, so I think, of course, I'm in Europe. So as such, I have a focus on Europe and a strong belief in Europe. The interesting thing I have is I work a lot with our colleagues in US that run a program there, and I work a lot with colleagues in Israel, which is an ecosystem by itself. And I see the differences, and I see the strength and also the weaknesses. And in my view, Central Europe is well prepared for winning in the long run. We have great universities, The culture fits very well. We have smart people. We have people that work focused, that also think long term. Yeah? So as such, also such important topics can be done. The challenge is typically it's not sold as good as in other areas. So others sell their technology better, although it's inferior. And investors also need to see that, and there's big investment rounds needed. But Europe.
Okay, sounds good. Staying true to where we work from. So what's your take on generative AI?
So that's a hype, and I think it's a hype for a good reason. But it's not just generative AI. I would extend it a bit more. It's AI. I think only ChatGPT triggered now a hype, and I think the awareness, oh, that's reality. Yeah, but the trend of AI is already there since longer, since years. Yeah, and in my view, it's a revolution. It's the revolution of the century. So what we experience, what we all together experience now already, it's just the beginning. In the next years, this will change the world like the computer did, like internet did, like mobile phones did, yeah, maybe even more. And it's just the beginning. And in my strong belief, there's a lot of opportunities coming with it, on efficiency increase, on better materials, on simply making things easier for us, and as such also getting a better quality of life if we do it the right way. And on the other hand, I also see that the risks, and this is worth a separate session. It's not just creating fake news or fake pictures. There's a lot more risks behind it. So it's super important to use this technology in a wise way, in a responsible way, and then it has the potential to make our lives really much, much better.
Okay, share one craziest idea that was ever pitched to you.
There's many. That was a recent one. Okay. A recent one, and maybe some of you know the company, even if I'm telling you what it is. But there was a company telling us they plan to build up a wireless underwater communication network in the sea. Yeah, wireless underwater communication network. I mean, the engineers know radio waves don't work underwater, not well. So it's a challenge. And the first reaction is crazy. Why? What for? And it's crazy indeed. But looking deeper, there is good reasons why there are use cases that justify building up such a network, probably in local areas first, not for the entire sea. But that was a super crazy idea. And I think it's also a good example. Sometimes often if I see myself, I hear ideas, I hear pitches, and I immediately think, okay, nonsense, yeah. But it's worth to have a closer look. Really have to have a closer look and to understand what's behind that. Why do they think this can be a success, and not just wipe this off the table right away.
I just thought they were thinking of boiling the ocean, so there was something in it. Okay, sounds super interesting. So what qualities do you value the most in a professional relationship?
Yeah, it's all about people, right? Everybody of us wants to work with people that you kind of like and can work with. So it's for sure likability, trustworthiness, and also coachability both ways. So everybody of us needs to learn, and that's what I like. Right? People listen and try to get better, and getting better together. This is something I like most in any relationship.
So in your experience, one leadership lesson that you would like to share with us today that you think is invaluable, whether you are a startup founder or a corporate leader?
I mentioned coachability that often, so I could mention it again. So I try to stay curious as good as I can. There's so many interesting things out there. to hear, to learn, to read about. So staying curious, I think, is super, super important, and also staying modest. No matter which role somebody has, very, very important to stay modest. I think Neha agrees.
Right. Awesome. I think that's super important. So who was or is your childhood inspiration?
I think there's no real person, no individual. When I was young, what I admired and couldn't really understand is how engineers can make such crazy things, like starting from cars, TVs, computers. And actually, more than 20 years back, technology was still simple, not simple, but far simpler than today. But I was already kind of attracted by how can this work, and how can people make this? Yeah? How does it work? And so I was more encouraged by engineers and impressed by them instead of individual persons.
So what drives you when you get up in the morning?
What drives me besides my car to work? Yeah, it's I think I changed over time. Why I get up, it's not just for earning money and bringing back safety for me and my family. So meanwhile, it's more the feeling and also confirmation that I can help others. So I have certain experience. I have people that help me that have even far more experience than I have, and I can bring this together. So in other words, I can see I have a purpose, far more than in the roles I had before. I have a real purpose, and I can do good things. So that's what brings me out.
Creating an impact on your own personal capacity. So what are you currently reading?
Hey, if somebody knows that book, he should speak up, because I would be surprised. The book is called Autonomy or Autonomy. Have you heard about this book? It's relatively new. It's my colleague is the author of it. And,
oh, wow.
and considering a high-tech person writing such a book in his spare time, it's very, very good. So her name is Petra. Buy it. I do a bit of advertising for her book. Yeah. But it's an example for books I like. And books I like are science fiction, but not looking totally far out, looking out 20 to 50 years. And this is one of the books that does that. It goes about autonomous driving in 20 years with all the good things and also the bad things. And these are books I simply like, because it's not so far off from what we can imagine. By the way, for instance, I also recommend you to read Ready Player One, the book. Don't look at the movie, but read the book. It's the same thing. It has an outlook, I think, I don't know, 50 years ahead or 40, it doesn't matter. But it shows how technology can really go and what can happen with it in a good and in a bad sense. So that's what I read.
I'm going to pick this one up. Sounds pretty interesting, and would definitely like to hear the take that your colleague has in shaping the future with the driverless car and what the impacts that she perceives that are going to be there. So how can people, whether they are individual investors or venture funds, associate with the corporate accelerator of Intel Ignite? Is there a way that they can connect?
We try to keep this very simple and pragmatic. So we don't have an application portal where founders need to have half a day spending on uploading information. We try to do it more personal. And actually, we look, as I think I indicated, into 300 companies every 6 months. And I have the privilege to go deeper with about 60 to 70 also every 6 months. Yeah, and this going deep means calls, means bringing in experts, and that's the way it is. Yeah, so reach out directly to me. I forward to our deal flow manager. I forward to the right location. May it be UK, may it be Boston, Israel, but it's very, very pragmatic. Reach out to us, and you're in the process.
And the same thing goes for the investors as well. They can connect with you, and then you would be able to make the startups introductions can facilitate it through that.
Same thing, exactly.
Okay, great. Till the time you're on DueDash, of course.
Of course.
So DueDash is definitely under consideration at the moment, being analyzed by Intel Ignite program. But till such time, we can definitely make those introductions through emails or facilitate those introductions one-on-one basis. That's great. So let's finish this conversation here before I take the audience questions with an outlook for the future of innovation space, the venture capital space, where you're also operating with respect to the tech, the role the tech will play, and more specifically with climate tech industry. How rapidly do you think it will mature, and what checks and balances Intel is planning to employ when you're looking at product from a business standpoint versus the social responsibility aspect there?
Yeah. So on the timeline, I mean, the reality and the fact is that some of the technologies that are also helping climate are not just, they are just like that. It's not just a good idea. It's not just knowing about it and investing money in it. It needs time. And one example is directly in our area, the computation platforms, and in particular AI. AI will drive incredible computation needs. Yeah, and these needs are in the end done on chips, on silicon. And there's different approaches how you can do it, but in the end, computation is needed. And in order to build such products, there's a lot of investment needed, yes, but also time to get to these products. And for instance, you have probably heard about what we are trying to contribute in that is building up fab capacity. Fab capacity in the Western world. We have a fabs plant in Ohio, in US, in Phoenix, Arizona. We have a big mega fab plant in Magdeburg in Germany. And such a fab, it will manufacture products that exactly meet the needs, but it's not there from one day to another. So we are talking about the fab is started, the land is bought, the buildings are built up now, and the first chip will be there probably in 5 years from now. Yeah? So it's not just like it doesn't come easy. And I think this is also something for investors. I mean, of course, ROI should be quick, and there's topics that have a shorter ROI, but when it comes down to the real ones, to the deep tech, to hardware, one has to have a longer breath, but it will pay off. And that's also the view we have and how we talk with investors, and they ask for our assessment. When can this ROI come? When is this a technology that can be applied in products? But simply hardware needs a bit longer, and the power saving typically comes from hardware.
So Alois, thank you so much for answering those questions. One quick question here. If you had to give one piece of advice to young Alois, what would that advice be?
Okay, so I would kick my ass, far more than than probably my environment did. So I would. So there's so many opportunities to change things and drive things, and I think most of us underestimate the possibilities we have. And I would more actively do that. So instead of being driven by the environment, which was the case for a while, yeah, I would try to shape the environment more and go more for opportunities, even if it's a higher risk.
Okay, thank you so much. So I'm going to take the audience questions now, and I think this is potentially the first question kind of connects to the last potential answer that you gave. So tech innovation directly relates to issues like climate change, medical research, company culture, etc. So what is Intel doing with regards to this, and what kind of technologies are you seeking for in your program?
So in the program is very broad. The program is as broad and as deep as a company like Intel can act. So which means that basically we could address all verticals from the market and from the, let's say, platform point of view, and it can go as deep as what we have in the fab, and all the level above, the chips, the electronics, or the packaging, the electronics, the low-level software, the high-level software. And I think this is the base for smart minds and applications that are built on top of it. On top of it, to control every kind of need and calculate in every of the verticals. So, and this is what we are looking for. So if there is a good idea that can help on climate reduction, on energy, on new energy generation, fusion technology, there's a lot of things out there where we are trying to help and support. But there needs to be a fit also. Yeah? We cannot just do things that are not in our expertise.
Sure. So the next question is that if a startup is located in Berlin or anywhere else within Europe, and if they apply to the program, would it be required for them to be relocated to Munich?
No, it's a hybrid program. So we try to make the physical interaction as it makes sense. I mean, founders don't twist thumbs typically. So what we do is the program is 12 weeks long. We have a kickoff week, we have a midterm week, we have a final week. Our request is that the founders and all founders are there for this 3 weeks. And actually it's 4 days, not an entire week. And all the sessions in between are in hybrid. And then it doesn't matter where the companies come from. Actually, we have only 2 companies typically in the batch from Munich, another 2 out of Germany, and the rest is spread all over Europe, from Finland all the way down to Spain.
Oh, okay. So the next question is very interesting, that it appears that the Intel Ignite program right now is predominantly focused on Western countries. Are there any plans to go more into the emerging markets?
Yes and no. So first of all, there's a program we have in Intel that covers India. India has also a vibrant startup culture and environment that we in the Western world don't really see, but there's a dedicated startup program just covering India. And yes, we have plans to go to Asia, which is a bit difficult in order to where to go. There's China, Taiwan, Korea. China is all a different ecosystem, but probably would go to Singapore if we would have already fixed plans in place. But no, as of now, we have nothing really solid and nothing funny to go there.
Okay, next question is a bit of an interesting question and potentially educational question, but I think it's definitely good to get your take on that. When is a startup qualified as a deep tech startup? In their case, the startup that we have here is E4S Tech. They have a clever combination of software and hardware. So working in different technology spheres, also mechanical aspect, and they take care of some other dimensions. Is that qualified as a deep tech company, or is the focus for Intel Ignite only software?
No. Definitely, it's not just software, of course. I mean, our products are hardware. Our products are chips, right? Tangible chips. So, of course, there runs a lot of software on it, but of course, hardware is also part of it. Chips, electronics, for sure. As such, definitely hardware is also considered deep tech. In my definition, the deepest tech you can have. So, and on the definition of deep tech, there's such a huge gray zone. What we can exclude is like insurtech, fintech, web shops. So this is something that is too high for us in the definition of deep tech. The closer it gets down to being executed on a platform, the more it fits our definition of deep tech. And one has to look into the example, but the relation of software and hardware, what is best done in hardware, what is best done in software, that is very interesting, because this is exactly defining on what we put into our products in the future. What needs hardware acceleration? What needs flexibility by software? And such use cases are super interesting for us to understand, and probably there would be a fit for the program.
Sounds interesting. So the next question is around raw materials, so potentially material science here. So they are working potentially on decarbonization, aspect of the manufacturing. Would Intel Ignite program be the right one, or should they connect with somebody else?
Depends on what they do. It's a big serious topic in the industry. In terms of the whole manufacturing chain, from the components all the way to the system. So it's a big topic. We had a company in this space that did kind of component engineering to do a material estimation of the final product. So it's definitely a very relevant topic. On what this is exactly and how we could support that, this is something we would have to look closer.
Okay. Next question is a bit broad. Maybe that's something as an investor you can answer. This person has created a fashion brand, and they develop their own fabrics and using recycling method. And there's a lot of tech that they use to make these new things. But apparently, they're having a hard time reaching out to investors in terms of how much technology they're using and how much they can do to differentiate for the fashion industry, specifically from a climate change standpoint. Do you have any suggestions for them?
This is so not my area of expertise.
Yeah.
Better come up with recommendations. But probably it's the same thing, that investors need to see what do they do different, What chemicals are they using? How are they reducing emission? How are they reducing pollution and such things? But this is so not my area of expertise.
Yeah, I think what they need to do is something to do with the communication, what they're communicating and how they're communicating. And I think I'll go back to your 1-minute pitch point that you mentioned, that the founders, why they're the right people, have some authenticity around it, and also the differentiation and whether it's the right fit for the investor. Maybe they're not the right investors whom you're reaching out to. You might want to look into that to see if they're interested in this kind of an investment proposition. That could be also one of the things to look into. And also probably just see in your communication, is it too much tech? Is it too much fashion? Where is the right balance coming from? And maybe just get some feedback from some other people. That's what I would say. All right. It seems definitely a bit vague for sure. Sounds pretty interesting in the sense of the idea with respect to fashion itself. But I think what I hear from Alois is going forward, artificial intelligence and manufacturing, new material sciences would definitely be one of the core areas where Intel would be looking into, and not just manufacturing itself, the manufacturing process overall and all together in the entire chain, how that's looked into, and software that is there on the chips, and obviously the software that people build on top of the chips is the complete, the entire life cycle that is there today will continue to evolve and evolve more as more and more AI is being used in the coming time. as we go forward across the different industries and different research cycles and innovations. I think that's the gist that I got from Alois. If you'd like to add anything there, please feel free to do that.
No, I think you summarized really well. I just want to encourage all of us to keep our eyes and ears open on what's happening right now, and to contribute in a positive way and in a constructive way. I mean, there's investors, there's other authorities, there's regulatory authorities. On top of what you said, the only thing to add is, let's not hide or close our eyes of what's coming. That would be the worst thing. But let's actively shape it. Let's use it for the better. And I'm talking specifically about AI.
So what would be the right time for a startup to join the program, Intel Ignite program? Could they join at the idea stage, or should they have some proof of concept?
We're happy to discuss early stage ideas, but for the program, it only makes sense if there's already a solid base in terms of team investment, also a certain product maturity. So typically the startups have already pre-seed or seed stage, because the program is that broad in all aspects, also in company building, in sales and marketing, that it really needs to have a solid base that we can utilize for the upcoming growth phase.
Okay. So if there is a material science, let's say, company, what should they what proof points should they have when they apply? Because one of the startups was from that background. I just thought I'll just zoom into that aspect.
Some MVP, so a proof point that it works. Some traction maybe, so that there's customers already using it. Material science in many aspects is a big topic, by the way, enabled by AI mainly. Yeah, so a minimum product, some customer traction, some confirmation, some proof points for us that it's a solid base, and that it's that the risk of failing technology-wise is reasonable. There's always risk to fail. Mm-hmm. That would be the minimum expectation.
Okay. So what happens after 12 months, when the company goes through the 12-month cycle? So is there, let's say, a post-program support as well for the company?
12 weeks, first of all.
Sorry, 12 weeks, sorry.
3 months. 3 mons. Sometimes I wish it would be longer. What we build up is a network of alums. So every company is entering a lifelong relationship with us. Our offer is, and our claim is, that even after the program, we are there for investor introductions, in critical situations, and really companies use it. So companies from previous batches come back to us. We have events. Recently, we had an interesting event which we called VC reverse pitching event. So it was not the startups pitching; it was the VCs pitching to the startups what they can offer, what they're looking for, and that was nice. And all the companies that we had in the program were invited to join. So it's ongoing network activity.
Okay. Okay, so you support them after the program as an ongoing basis to continue to make introductions and pitch and all of that.
Right.
That's awesome. It's been fun talking to you, Alois, and I know we are trying to get you on the DueDash platform, and of course, when founders reach out to you, they would definitely write about their company, and I'm sure we've been already discussing that you'll be able to find some amazing startups on DueDash, and looking forward to our engagement there. Guys, listeners, thank you so much for joining, and if you liked it, then please share. Give us a shout out. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day ahead.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.